Welcome to Specifically About Quality, the podcast by Qualitywise, where we explore the principles, practices, and challenges of modern quality management. We will discuss key concepts, share real-world examples, and bring clarity to the complexities of quality management. In each episode, we provide insights for quality managers and professionals, helping you lead with confidence, ensure compliance, and drive continuous improvement. This podcast is here to support your work and your impact. Clear, focused, practical. Let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome to Specifically About Quality, your go-to podcast for making sense of quality challenges and improving systems that drive results. I'm Agata Lewkowska, a specialist in quality management systems with a background in the automotive industry. And my co-host is Christopher Scott.
And I'm Christopher Scott. Together, we bring you insights from the world of quality assurance and operational excellence, helping you stay ahead of the ever-evolving industry. We want to start by thanking you for joining us today. And if you find this podcast helpful, please follow and comment. Your feedback is what keeps Specifically About Quality going strong.
Let's start with what we conclude from our experiences with our clients. Our internal audits feel like an obligation, not an improvement tool. Why does this happen? Chris, any ideas?
Exactly. Too often audits are scheduled to meet the calendar. So there might be an audit schedule that needs to be done for ISO 9001 or in our case for automotive IATF 16949. And this is with checklists copied from the standard. Auditors may not understand the processes deeply and the employees see it as just an inspection, not a conversation.
And another reason, audits often focus on compliance only. And actually, this means that the audit is only following the procedure, but this is not concentrating on process, if this is effective or if it's contributing to the value for the customer. So generally, you can learn about this more from our episode number 5 podcast, where we talked about the auditing from customer perspective, how to prepare for this kind of audits. Of course, compliance is important. However, it is again about the value.
Yes, and we'll talk about how to shift that mindset as well later in the podcast.
So, what does an audit that adds value actually look like? We can maybe ask a common question from our clients. Okay, Chris? What should we look for if we want our audits to be meaningful?
That is a great question because we do hear it all the time about how can we make them meaningful. And first, they need to connect business risks to the customer expectations. So if you sell a product into a market, you need to make that link to the risk within your company. As an example, let's consider an internal audit on the assembly line. Instead of just checking document control and revisions, explore whether operators have the right information at the point of use and whether it actually prevents the errors in the first place. That can uncover gaps that no one had seen before.
And also, valuable audits identify process weaknesses. One of the examples of such process weaknesses can be not meeting our own KPIs. And for instance, if scrap rates are creeping up, the auditor could explore more. Of course, the role of the auditor is not looking for root causes. However, what are other weaknesses in the processes that actually created this effect in the scrap? Yes, how we on the shop floor or in the process, let's say, are taking care of meeting the intended results of this process.
And they should also check the interfaces between processes. So this is the difference from process to process. As you mentioned, we need to make sure that we don't act as just departments and we're looking at how we involved in the process steps itself. So how well does the information flow between departments is a good question. Many problems live there.
Yeah, especially if we are talking about the main processes like this manufacturing process. There are so many functions, yes, and actually we can say that from my experiences, I don't see that many organizations who have the production process, manufacturing process containing a lot of functions because those functions have their own processes. And why not doing one mega process and having everyone in my manufacturing process? Because at the end, everyone is working on this effect in the main process, yes? This is my conclusion, Chris. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult to do that because you could create a process flow diagram which shows all of the different inputs and outputs to that mindset. And in the end, the main pipeline is the production process. That's the value-added process in the lean, so to speak. We all add together. If you're in supplier quality assurance, you're working with suppliers externally. You're trying to ensure they meet the requirements. If you're in procurement, for example, you're trying to source and nominate suppliers and select them that are going to not disrupt the production lines. We're all working towards the same goal, which is customer satisfaction and increased sales as well as margin. But you could do that, but I like to work in sort of my personal experience, small chunks, but it's good to map the full process out and then look at which procedures and processes are aligned as inputs and outputs to each process.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do you plan an audit program that focuses on improvement? What would you suggest?
I think we need to start with a risk-based audit plan. So again, risk-based thinking is a really strong theme and requirement, part of QMS, ISO 9001, as well as IATF 69449. Prioritize on processes that impact customer satisfaction, as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, product safety or compliance. But I would probably say that product safety and compliance is number one. Definitely, it needs to be safe and legally okay. And then customer satisfaction. Internal cost or waste, you're looking at reducing that as much as possible, because if you have a lot of waste or cost problems, then you're not going to be viable as a business, and eventually you'll probably go into liquidation. And then the known problem areas, where are the hotspots? Where is the heat map telling you the issues are happening?
You know, Chris, that I love quality management system and the requirements. So let me just tell you from the requirements perspective that, of course, audit program must be prioritizing the audits based on certain factors. For instance, this already what you've said is fully correct. However, let's remember that every process is not that important. Yes, they are not equal. So when I would plan auditing in a, yearly time frame, I would definitely take higher frequency for those which are creating the value for the customer. And here as an example, and also what I'm saying during the trainings is that, of course, manufacturing process is the number one, always. Second could be logistics process, because we need to deliver. Let's remember that customer satisfaction in quality management system in automotive consists on two factors, actually, the quality and delivery, yes? So that's why the logistics. Another thing is that if we have quality assurance processes designed as a separate process, or it can be a portion of activities which is in managerial process, hard to say now. One good example, because every organization can have quality assurance differently organized. But this is also, for me, one of the most important process, okay? But let's also remember that if there were any changes in the processes, we redesign the process. This is also the situation why we could audit in higher frequency. And you've said about the results of the processes, but also let's remember that results from the previous audits could also be taken into consideration, yes? The risk is always one of the first driver, yes, and this risk can be reflected in the complaints, in potential market situations like recalls even, yes, or disruptions. But also, if our processes are not presenting positive trends due to monitoring, this can be also the trigger for us to organize another audit, yes, or maybe change the frequency in the time frame which we have defined currently pending in our organization. Another tip, what I would generally say by saying this, is also that process owners could be involved in planning because they know the risks. They should know the risks. And let's remember that for audit program, the only trigger as quality management system requirements that, let's say, based on this, what I've said, and with making the thinking very easy, like once per year, I need to audit my process. It's not reflecting the reality if I don't know the risks. Process owners will know, yes? So this can be a completely different trigger to put some audits with a higher frequency. Ask them what risks or challenges they simply see. And again, this will build ownership and trust that they are important and they are heard.
And rotate the audit focus. So that was a great point that you said there earlier about, builds ownership and trust. But I think not always by department. So sometimes if you do a theme audit, and these are things like traceability. So if you do a traceability audit, if you did that by department, for example, yeah, traceability could be fine for manufacturing, but it could be no good for logistics or procurement or engineering. It shouldn't happen, but it can if you do it from a departmental perspective. So do it like that. Maybe error proofing. So the poka-yoke, the hard type, the one by design. Follow the process, follow the product and try and understand, is it effective? As well as customer requirements, finally, I'd like to add that If you do a theme type audit, that might expose more risks and more problems, but then they're problems to solve. Incorrect.
When you're talking about theme audits and you said about error proofing, I already had on my mind layered process audit, and actually Stellantis FCA requires that kind of theme audits as one of the customer specific requirements. So this is a good example, I believe. Okay. So now, how do we conduct audits so people feel engaged, not defensive, especially those who are our audit team?
It's quite an interesting concept, because when I used to be in production many years ago, there is a us versus them mentality, and you'll see that a lot, especially on LinkedIn. There's a lot of computer-generated graphics through AI to say quality versus everyone else. It's interesting. It's about, working with the people, showing that this is an opportunity for improvement, not just compliance. It starts with the audit culture itself. Auditors need to be trained in communication and coaching, not just checklist completion. So as an example, we worked with a plant where auditors in one of our clients used "show me how you do this" instead of "where is your procedure." This led to real conversations and revealed improvement ideas. So if you're speaking to them as an equal as opposed to someone to be subjugated, that's the difference. It's treating someone with respect as you do it.
I had a thought now that when I was on the training for myself for being the internal auditor, when I started my journey in automotive, I haven't been trained in communication, and just actually we went through the requirements and this, let's say, hard skills. But I remember that only one training covered this topic, and this was lead auditor training for ISO 9001, where it is really quite demanding training, only in ISO 9001, and there it was addressed, yes. Okay, so I think the attitude is really important, attitude of auditor. This must be a person who is positive and open. When I'm teaching about auditing, I'm trying to, not only say what is in ISO 19011, which are the guidelines for the auditing different management systems, but also I'm trying to share this soft communication and attitude, which I've learned when I was on my lead auditor training, yes. So generally, the most important thing is that everyone should be convinced that me as an auditor, I'm here because I want to help. Yes, it's not that I'm here because my role is to find fault. Okay. Another thing, what I'm also saying is we are in the same team. This is our common goal. Yes, to have better results by identifying the gaps. So the audit generally done in such manner with such an attitude can definitely be the benefit for the business. Yes, because no one, the auditee, is not closed person. Yes. If he knows, she knows that I'm here because I want to support business, the person is more willing to talk simply.
Absolutely. And especially if you're doing a customer to supply audits, people feel nervous, or if it's a management or top management doing the audit itself, like the layered process audits, as you mentioned, depending if it's level 3, level 4, people are nervous. And it's really important to try and calm that down so they don't make mistakes and say the wrong thing as well, because the wrong thing might not be the reality. And remember, thank and recognize people for improvement suggestions during the audit. It's a fact-finding mission as well. So if people have a good idea, praise them for it. It's a good thing.
During the trainings, I have from time to time questions, what to do if I have to do an audit with top management? I'm stressed. I need to ask them if they are doing things. I said, treat them as everyone. They have a certain obligation. If they are not fulfilling those obligations in quality management systems, simply they deserve a nonconformity. And you should be very assertive in that moment and simply rise this nonconformity. You're exactly equal like everyone who is audited, just in the situation of audit.
It's kind of the mindset of no one is above the law, and why would the top management be above the quality management system? They're not. They're a part of it.
Yes, exactly. So please take this advice, what I said now, and do not fear. So let's talk about another thing. How do we make sure that audit findings lead to actions? Okay, that this will not be only the report, finalizing this, what happened during the audit, but the things will be really done.
Yeah, first, I think keep the findings of that audit in the report, focused on process risks and customer impact. What are the main things that's going to hurt the process or the customer if it's not done? If it's not done on time or not done with the relevant actions that are, probably effective. They have to be effective actions and stop the problem. Avoid nitpicking on minor document issues. So if there's a spelling mistake on a document, does it still serve the same purpose? Great, grammar's everything, but it's not really going to stop the process. It's more about the things that are going to stop the line or really upset your customers. What about for you, Agata? What would you add?
Actually, I must tell you that you said the most important things, actually, which I would repeat definitely. Process risks and customer impact, really. This is important. Customer impact is connected also to this customer focused mindset. Risk-based thinking, we know that it must be present. Yes, we also recorded a podcast about this, specifically about quality. So please listen to this to learn more about this approach. However, what I would say that the audits, we know, must be used as an input to management reviews. But also this can be a trigger to process improvement, yes, to take decision about the improvements. But let me also just emphasize that management review is an opportunity in our quality management system. I will call it opportunity, which is quite rare to discuss about many things because at least annually it has to be done. Not that many organizations, actually very few, I observe, have this management review meeting in few times per year. But if they have, it's really definitely a big advantage for them. And generally, one of the input is to discuss the outcomes from our audit program execution, yes. And please take it seriously, really. I know that management review is not the space where we will go into details. However, you need to pay attention that this program is effectively implemented and is bringing you the results. Maybe even just an overview, helicopter view, how many audits I have versus how many nonconformities, what can be improved, maybe top 10 audit findings, which can really cause the issues with the customer or big business risks. Now, if we apply this risk-based thinking and customer focus, okay? But also, one thing what I want to say, please make sure that now I'm talking to top management, that you are informed about the outcome from audits, even from each single audits, because this is also one of the requirements in ISO 9001 that we need to ensure that the results of the audits are reported to relevant management. And in my experiences, I struggled with a situation that, let's be frank, not that many people were interested to come to the closing meeting. So I changed a little bit my approach and I just created a kind of checklist. Please, dear top management representatives, sign on the list that you have received from me the report. And I hope you will work with this, what is there. I mean, you will at least read it. This is my advice, how we can meet this requirement to ensure that the results of the audits are cascaded somehow and reported to relevant management. Because let's be frank, management will take a decision on the resources and the actions. Sometimes some actions, corrective actions, may involve more resources. This is the justification why you should know about the outcome from the audits.
And another good practice is to establish the effectiveness KPIs for audit program execution or non-conformity management. I mean, how quickly do you get the actions in place and are they effective? Because if you keep delaying and you're overdue for the actions, is it getting in place fast enough in the first place? Is it effective in the first place?
And follow up of everything what is happening in the audit program, yes. KPI will tell us maybe if we have some bottlenecks somewhere, but let's remember that auditors should check whether corrective actions are effective, not just closed. This is also the requirement that after working with corrective actions, we need to verify if they were effectively closed. And again, this builds accountability and can drive real change in this audit execution.
So to recap, our summary for audits to add value are to focus on process effectiveness and customer risks, number one. Engage process owners and encourage dialogue between different members within your processes and departments. Prioritize based on risk and business priorities. And drive action and improvement, not just compliance.
And internal audits can absolutely add value when they've risk-based thinking applied, process-focused, improvement-driven, and well followed up. And if you would like support in building such audit program, we at Qualitywise offer audit program design, internal audit for training, or audit effectiveness assessments. So visit us at qualitywise.pl to learn more or schedule a consultation.
And today we've prepared a free downloadable resource for you, Internal Audits that Add Value, 10 practical tips to improve your program. You'll find it linked in with this episode at qualitywise.pl resources.
Thank you again for listening, and be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your colleagues. The more we learn together, the better our systems will be. See you next time on Specifically About Quality.